Okay, so welcome. We're now on class number 11, and we're pretty much halfway through this first chapter. Before we talk about what we're going to learn today, I just want to say that next week we are going to have the class on Sunday, even though, there's Shavuot a few days later, because I think that it's there are enough days afterwards that there's no need to cancel the class. So there will be a class next Sunday. Okay, so where are we? In Shara Yechud, chapter 1, Reb Hillel of Paritch. So finally, we can actually get our bearings. I'm going to share a document a flow chart that I created that I want to share with you, because I think it's quite exciting where we finally came to. So just to set our intention and see where we are. So this is where we are. So in paragraph 1, Reb Hillel gave us a big picture. He set our intention. He said, in order to know that there is God and that he is one, as in the mitzvah of Shema Yisrael, we need to do hisbonenus. But what is hisbonenus, and how does one do it? So then he said, okay, in order to tell you what is hisbonenus, I need to tell you about Chochmah, Bina, and Daas. So then in paragraphs 2 to 9, he zoomed in and he explained Chochmah, Bina, and Daas in a general way. And then he zoomed in even closer and he told us more details of the Oimek, the Rochav, and Orech of Chochmah, Bina, and Daas. So it's been this process of focusing into the details, detail of details. And, that's really what we've been doing over the last 10 classes. And now, today, we're going to zoom back out with paragraph 10. And he's going to take the details and fit them into the big picture before he once again goes in and zooms into more details. So this is one of the things that we learned from later in Shara Yichud, that this is the process of learning. You start with the big picture. So it's almost like, you're looking at the map and then you're going into the details. Where am I on the map? And you're going to more and more details. But then you have to come back out and put the details back into the big picture to orient yourself. Where am I? And there's a certain kind of relief in seeing where you are after all these details of details of details. So that's really what we're going to look at today, is in paragraph 10. And so this looks familiar to you, right? This is basically what we've been doing. Chochmah, Bina, and Daas, and then all the details of Chochmah, Bina, and Daas. Okay, so I asked Mila if she could do something for us that is a little bit more user-friendly, because I kind of feel that maybe some of us from all of those, going for like 7 or 8 weeks, just going into all these details, that you can feel like you're not getting enough pleasure to keep you going, because it's hard work to even remember all of those details. So let's see what Mila came up with. Mila.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So I hope everybody is enjoying it, enjoying the journey, and keeping us a little bit keeping us a little bit moving. We did this little class the other Monday, and it kind of helped us to get like a little perspective as to where we're going. it's very hard to be on a journey without understanding where we're going. Like I know our final destination is to know God, but in between, we want to get to these rest stations, where we could meet people and schmooze a little bit and really keep connected to this great thing. And actually, an idea came to us. We were preparing for the class with Nuria, and since today's passage that we're going to be learning from Shari Yichud is quite short, he's just giving us, a whole beautiful summary in literally 3 sentences. And so while we were preparing for this, we were thinking whether we should put when he describes about the Chachma, if you remember, talks about the midas of Seichel. And we're having this discussion with Neria, what exactly the midas of Seichel mean? Because we usually think of midas as emotions. That's what it means, emotions. And how this whole situation with a Rav, right? If you remember that whole egg that was born on Yom Tov, who remembers that whole discussion? And he was able to give a psagdin, but he wasn't able to explain how this is different than a calf that was born on Yom Tov. Why calf is not muktzah and the egg is muktzah. That was like the gist of the discussion. And then the question came up, like, how is that related to midas? How is that situation is seichel of midas? So then we came into this whole discussion, and I do feel that having that discussion really helps us to put things in perspective and really clarify things for us, because sometimes we think of midas as emotions where it's actually connected to decisions. And every time we have this the discussion in general, people are like, really, midas are connected to decisions? Well, yeah, Ava and Yira are connected to decisions. Ava, we're going for it, and Yira, we're not going for it. So Chesed and Gvura. So I thought maybe we could just go through like a little journey of how any project, literally any project, is really coming to fruition. Right, so that will kind of provide clarity as to what is Seder Hishtalshelus is, and how it works in a live form, not on a book on a page. Right? Ready? Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go with a very standard model, and we all know why this model constantly being discussed in Chassidus. This person just sits chilling on his balcony, okay, daydreaming. And all of a sudden, an idea comes to his mind. And he's like, he sees himself in this beautiful palace. And as he starts seeing himself in this beautiful palace, he's basically seeing a vision, daydreaming. He has an enormous amount of pleasure seeing himself inside that house, doing whatever else he likes to do. And how much pleasure he's going to experience when he's going to have that specific house. Now, whatever that may be. Okay? So you could, kind of do that exercise now. Just sit and see yourself in your like this dream house, whatever that may be. And we are all different, because somebody likes to live in the forest, somebody likes to live in the mountains, whatever that means, right? For that particular person, that is dream house. And that split second, while he has this oneg, there is a desire being born to have that on a constant basis. Meaning, when you just daydream, you have this oneg, and then it goes away because you need to cook, you need to do this and that, right? The life kicks in. But that desire that he should have it betmidus constantly is being born. And this is our ratzon. This is our desire to have that oneg. Now, oneg and ratzon are truly interchangeable. And this is pretty much where our crown is. Once person is really having that two things, meaning it was pleasurable enough to want it. And this is the key relationship between oneg and ratzon. He is basically now, in a way, activating his chush, right? Remember, chush was the revelation of his desire connected to the ratzon. He's activating his chush, and his chush is going to do what? Remember what chush does? It activates another space, which is called our koach hamaskil. It's already coming into domain of our brain. His koach hamaskil is going to come up with different ideas. Okay, basically, he's going to take that initial image, initial picture that a person had and make it more tangible, right? Very concrete. And is going to come up with two things: what person wants and how he wants it, right? These are the two main questions of Chachma and Bina. So the person is going to really have a very crystal clear vision in Chachma, what type of floors he's going to have, and what type of everything is going to be included. All the details are going to be included in that vision. And also, remember, Chachma is connected to Oneg. That initial Oneg that he had, there's a yichud of Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Atik, is going to really draw down in that. So he's going to receive a full package of his vision. And all the details are going to be included in it. And those details are later going to be printed out on a page, point by point, describing what every detail in his house has, right? Because when we see something, all the details are included in it, right? When you see your dream house, you already know what kind of trees are going to be outside, how your roof is going to look like, all the way till your bathroom, the tiles, and the doorknobs. Yeah, everything is part of our taste, right? What we like. Sometimes we enter houses and we're like, whoa, forget about it. And some houses are, oh, yes, this is what kind of house I want, right? So that is very relatable to us. And that's what Bina's job is, to really focus on those details. But they're all packaged together nicely in the vision of the Chachma. Okay. After that, it's still not enough. Why? Because what's really going to keep the Bina going into all these dry details? By the way, have you ever worked on building a project? Forget about it. At one point, once you start spelling out your vision, you don't want it anymore because it's such a painful process to describe your vision to somebody else. Remember what Bina's job is, that it's not going to only stay within me. Yeah, because I could have daydreaming from today until tomorrow. Nothing is going to come into actualization if I'm not able to describe my vision to an architect. It's not going to go inside my brain, or something like that. I need to actually put it in words. I want doorknobs that look like this, that look like this. Now, why these details are important? Imagine you're going to have your dream house, but the doorknobs are going to be the ones that you don't like. What's going to happen to you? Are you going to enjoy your house? No. Everything goes down the drain. And we see that a lot with projects. Well, I dealt a little bit with contractors, and they already have that bitter experience when they did everything how the person wanted. And one thing they left out. And then the person is ready. Okay, take everything back. I'm not paying you a penny. I don't want that house. And they're like, really? Yes, it happens. With rich people, they could build another house from scratch. They have no problem, but they want to live where they want to live. Does that make sense? So this is a key point. So we're not talking about a person who is like wants just to have a roof over the head. No, we're talking about a person who has enough money, who wants to be fully expressed in his house and really enjoy his house with every single detail. Like he wants to like everything in his house. Okay. So I know it's hard to picture, but there are people like this out there in the world. So basically, so this is his dream house. So now all these details are really there. And now the Bina is doing a very tedious job. This is where our left brain, writing everything down in such a way that another person, by reading this, and this could be a very thick document, okay, by reading all this, will be able to put together exactly the vision back. So this is the orach of Bina, writing it down, bringing different pictures, right? So the other person can actually relate to, not just reading it, and doing all this, da, 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 da. Now, after doing all that work, a person really has to come up with a decision whether he's going to move forward with this project or not move forward with this project. This is where the midas come into place. Well, although Chochmah and Bina also have midas, and that's why the Bina is a mother that gives birth, right, to 6 sons and 1 daughter. That's like the perfect scenario. Okay, so what are these 6 sons, right? These are all the midas and the malchus, the action. So Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes is, are we moving forward with this or are we not moving forward with this? And then making peace with that decision. Okay, so with Chesed, we are moving forward with that. So this is like a little, how do we say it? Like an office that's, making a decision. We're moving forward with that. We're not moving forward with that. Meaning the head and everybody else, they're giving us this amazing ideas. And sometimes projects could be put on hold. This is where it's going to be put on hold in this station. Okay, we want to move it, meaning Chesed says yes, but the Gvura says when we're going to move forward with that. Meaning puts a limit to it. We're going to move forward with that now, in a month from now, in a year from now, when? Okay, so then let's say the project is, we're going forward with it. Yes, we want it so much, right? We had so much pleasure with it. We had so much desire with it. We're moving right now. So they're moving right now into this project. They're jumping in. And what happens then? Then they're going into details again. By Netzach and Hod, there is another re-evaluating station when it mamash coming to actually doing it. Meaning some project, yes, we're doing it now, but then they kind of get stuck somewhere, So if it was a really potent, a very deep desire, a very deep onek that was more connected to the Atzam and the Shama, it will pass the Nehi station as well. By Nehi station, a lot of times Nehi is, a right foot and left foot, but in a lot of Hasidic work, we see Nehi being kidneys. And if we look at kidneys have the shape of a brain. There's 2, left and right brain. So this is our miniature brain that reevaluates and recalculates all the details that happened in a Chochmah and Bina brain. Everything gets recalculated, just to make sure that there is no mistakes. It's like your underwriting department, right? Make sure that we're really, really going to do it because we're going to do it. We are so close to action. Do we really want to put out all the resources out there for this desire, for this onek? Is it worth it? That's all recalculations happens. And after doing that, then the conclusion might be, Netzach, yes, we're going forward. Hod, let's wait. No, we're not ready. Okay? And that's, again, right side and the left side. And then Yisod, we feel very secure. Yes, we're doing it. And then we're moving forward with Malchus. Right? So Yisod is also bonding. Bonding with a project emotionally. So it's very similar to Daas, because Daas is also bonding. Okay? But that's more emotional response to Daas. Right? Daas is more still yet intellectual part because it's even called Daas. Yisod is more bonding with a project on a very like a liver type way. Liver is a very quiet organ, hardly moves. right? But yet liver is also filtering system, right? It filters the blood. So it's very similar to what Bina is doing, right? Going through all the details, seeing where the mistakes are, how can we do it better? How can we describe it better? So, that's where the bonding is. And then it actually comes into fruition. Yes, Mazel Tov, the phone calls are made, the money is dispatched, and the building project began. Now, through that whole building project, when the actual stuff gonna happen, we're always gonna go back and forth. We're gonna revisit our vision. We're gonna come back through this whole Seder Ishtalshalos has to be burning hot throughout the entire process. And in the end, right before everything is gonna be finishing up, right? When you're going to be working about what type of window shields you're going to have there, what type of curtains you're going to have there. A person comes into that transition period where he just wants to finish it. That, okay, let's just, and in one Maimer, Mittel Rebbe describes about this being like this obsession where the person who is running the project already hurries everybody else. So say, okay, come on. He just gets very anxious. Okay, he gets very, very anxious, and he wants to already be in his house. Like he doesn't have patience anymore for this whole nonsense of taking it so long for it to complete. Like, okay, I want this already, right? So we all know it's like it happens in the birth. That's where transition, when you really want this baby out already, no matter what. It's like, that's it. I've labored enough already. I just come out. It happens, on many different levels. Also in projects, I went through it. I know that you just want, like, okay, when are we moving in? Like, and you really get very bold with the contractors. It's like, okay, this is it. It has to stop. It has to finish. Like, I want my oneg already, right? That picture where you saw yourself in the house enjoying your cup of coffee. It's like you already want it to happen, not only in your brain, but so that there's a little rush in that area when we're talking about Nihi, it's already like, okay, let's go. Let's just do it. I don't want to think about it anymore. I already thought about it. We're already too much recalculating. I want it now, basically. And historically, we're pretty much in that place, right? Why the building is given as an example to this whole thing is because Hashem wants dira b'tachtonim, right? This is like the psychological component where we really focusing on on a house. So so this is where we're going with this so I see Nachama wrote over here, it would be interested to look further into interactions of Chesed and Gvura in decision-making process. Right. It's quite Nehi is Netzachod Yisod, exactly. So it is very interesting because why am I bringing this whole? They are interacting, in the decision making, and they need to go back all the time into the vision to make that decision, right? So why am I bringing this example to you? Is because we're truly not thinking in a linear way, because all these interactions and all this yichudim, they happen simultaneously. So we're looking at this beautiful structure that's working on a constant basis, the same way like the body. We cannot think in the body in a linear way because everything happens at the same time, right? Well, what we could do, we could freeze one fragment, right? And look what really happens. But then we need to unfreeze it and freeze onto another aspect to see how that works, and then unfreeze it, and then see how they're all working together. And that's where people sometimes feel a little bit anxious when we go too much into details. So now my advice to you is like, don't draw conclusions. Just let the process to take you, and really try to enjoy as much as possible, because if we're really not connecting to the oneg, we're going to burn out. Literally going to go burn out. And this is where the great leaders really able to connect to. Like, I'm just going to tell you a very interesting story. A new jewelry store opened up in Granite called Holy Gems. Okay. It's an interesting story. Go visit the website. It's a phenomenal story. This guy, he came by the Rebbe, Avi Tauber. I think his name is. I'll figure out exactly now. He basically, he's a geologist who digs for all kinds of diamonds and precious stones and da da da. And the Rebbe tells him that in Haifa, under the Haifa somewhere, I don't know exactly the details, but there is enormous amount of precious stones that the world yet to discover. Like, it's nowhere in the world can be found. So the guy gets very excited, right? So what happened then? What happened? Let's put it into Seder Ishtalshus. He gets the onik. He already sees himself finding enormous something that nobody else found. So there's onig right then and there, especially when it comes from the tzaddik. He knows it's emes, it's not his imagination. He has a ratzon to dig. Avitau. Yeah, thank you. From the Tanya, exactly. So he basically goes and he puts an enormous amount of funding into this project. Okay. For 30 years. Okay. Not 1 year, not 2 years, not 3 years. This guy is digging in the Haifa area for 30 years. He went bankrupt a few times. Other people put in the money because of the Rebbe's promise. They're not getting a penny back. All the investments are gone. 30 years. Can you believe this? Now, the guy dies, actually, without seeing anything. The children, the daughter and the son, continue digging on the promise of what the Rebbe said to the father. Can you believe this? After 2 years of his passing, I guess he did some storms in Shemaim, It's like, okay, this is not fair. So after 2 years, they find gems that there is nowhere to be found in the world. But just think about it. He was ready to dig. There was a full-fledged yigia, not just in his brain, but fully invested in the project to the point that he actually got his kids excited about it. Kids didn't think that the father is, a little bit off. So it's amazing. It's really an amazing example from somebody in nowadays, a true chassid, right? We're not, when we're reading about this old Siddim, like Rabbi Hillel Parcher, this and that, it's like, wow. But at some point, we ask a question, do we have anybody in our generation who is so connected? And it's interesting, but this is what it is. It's us digging and finding wealth within ourselves. And Baruch Hashem, I'm very happy for the family that they finally found, and they could pay their debts and move up to a different level of operation. So okay, so let's go back to the text. Okay, any questions so far? So we're going to start the digging. Take your shovels. Let's go. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, do you see it? Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we see it. If you can just make it bigger.
Sure. So this is on page 304.
Oh, okay.
That's good? Okay.
Very good.
So let me just annotate. Okay. So we're going to start from here. Now, here is going to be, very quickly describing this up-down, what we pretty much discussed, but in a little bit different words. V'hine kol hanal. And here, everything what we discussed above. Hu milemala lemata. It's from above down. V'chacham, hamaskil devar chachma, mitzad etzem koach hamaskil. This process is by a chacham, the one that's able to conceptualize a particular wisdom, mitzad etzem koach hamaskil, through the essence of his koach hamaskil. Shaloi. Sheholech beseder v'hadraga milamala lamata. That is going with a particular order from level to level, milamala lamata, from above to below, which is shelamala min haseichel nimshach nevias haseichel, that from above the seichel is being drawn down or flowed the revelation of the seichel, right? Which we discussed. That was from oneg and ratzon. That's what activates his koach hamaskil to bring down whatever that is he's desiring. Basically, his koach hamaskil is subject to his desire. He is, which puts him on a level of a master. He has mastered his koach hamaskil. He has mastered his internal component to the point where they are, in a way, like obligated to provide, or they completely bottle to his desire, right? And nimshach koach hamaskil shehu harochav de chachma, which is the rochav of chachma. Now, you might ask a question here. One second, what happened to Omek? Where's Omek here? Well, because Omek, remember, was what? Nothing. Omek is nothing. Omek is koach habitul. The koach habitul, you cannot point your finger in your brain and say, oh, this is my koach habitul. You can't. So wherever the revelation takes place, always in rochav. Okay, in the rochav of chachma. Al yidei ha'omek, through the omek. Ve'achar kach na'aseh v'nimshach koach ha'orech. And after that, it's being drawn down, becomes, right, forms and being drawn down the koach ha'orech, the power of the length of chachma. Why he needs the power of a length of chachma? Lahashpia barochav de bina, in order to give it, to give that hashpa to the width of bina. Shehu mahus etzem habina, which is the essence of bina, what bina is about. And it again happens through al yidei ha'omek, through the omek Shabbat, that's in it. Ve'achar kach nimshach orech de bina. And after that, we see the orech of bina kicking in. Why? Lahashpil ha'inyan ma'od, to really lower down the inyan very much, ad sheyitkaref b'kli moichay, until it's going to be really coming very close into the keli of his brain, right? Meaning he is really going to descend the idea until it actually gets to his brain, which is very interesting. That means that this person who we're talking about is really not operating on the level of seichel, of brain, right? It's that we're talking about really this interesting formulation, because what does this mean is going to come closer to his brain? Well, it was beyond his brain? Yeah, it was. Because we're talking about he's working with spiritual powers of his oneg and ratzon that are not in his brain, which is like, it's more of a makif. And he's talking about the chosh and koach hamaskil and chachma. And then the actual brain, meaning now we see the connections in his brain are really creating a whole map of how whatever that chachma is, right? Or that's already his orech of his bina. Or lahasagat tinok katan, to the understanding or grasp of a little child. V'chein hanal, and the same is above. Hu al yidei hadas, and all of the above, it's done through das, through him connecting to, and what das does, remember, sheme'orer koach hamaskil. The das is the one that awakens his koach hamaskil, lahaskil. to conceptualize, velahasik, and to grasp. Now, this is up down by a Rav, right? A person who is a master, and we're soon going to learn more in details about what that looks like specifically. Aval betalmid, but a student, sheshamea sechel mirabo, that hears the sechel from his teacher, she'ena shamea rak chitzonius sechel, that he hears only the external part of the sechel, right? So the person who is a talmid, who is on the level of a student, he is really not grasping anything but the external factors. Shuhu oisius shebazvara, that these are the letters that are in the explanation of the bina, right? So like all of us, right? We open a mimer, and what do we see there inside? We see letters. Letters of what? Letters of explanation. The Rebbe is explaining. That's exactly what we're doing right now. We see letters. Okay, what happens? And after that, we see davar, when he wants to understand that thing, and the rotza is the key word here. Al burya, he wants to understand it very, very well. What does he do? And he really exerts himself a lot on this thing, on the subject. He's able to actually travel all the way to the depth of that haskala. Can you believe this? Until to the point, the way it is included in a koach hamaskil. That's like, whoa. Why? Because, wait a second, aren't we talking about a student that is learning a mimer? And that mimer was generated by koach hamaskil of the Rebbe, right? So if you think about it, how is it possible for him, no matter how much he exerts himself, to actually reach the level of this haskala, of this, whatever that may be, that piece of mimer, the way it was included in koach hamaskil? Like, wait a second, how is that possible? That's the Rebbe's koach hamaskil. How a person is able to reach the way it's koach hamaskil? Any thoughts on that? Come on, guys. What is he talking about?
There is such a thing that says when we singing the nigun of a Rebbe, our thoughts become like theirs. There is a way, like through vibration, where we can match the thought of the Rebbe. Or anything.
Fine, but we're not talking about thought. We're talking about, I'm learning a mimer. I'm opening a mimer, and I'm reading and reading and reading and reading, trying to break my head out of it. And I'm reading and trying to understand, making mind maps, summaries, everything else what we're doing here. And we're reading and reading and doing his bonus before the tefillah, learning, and before the tefillah, during the tefillah. And babam, how is it? My question is, how it's the Rebbe's koach hamaskil. Fine. How can I reach the Rebbe's koach hamaskil? What is this?
Maybe because it's kalul in the words that we're reading, and when we go, it's already there. But when we go deeper, we just find it.
Fine, but we're talking about the way it is included in koach hamaskil. Let's go back to what we know about koach hamaskil. What do we know about koach hamaskil? You're right. You're all saying it's a beautiful thing. It's true that all of the wisdom is included in how the Rebbe is expressing themselves, and therefore, I all the time tell people you should look in a text. You cannot learn from somebody else telling you what's in the mind. Why? Because it's kli chamishi. Understand what I'm talking about? It's not even kli not kli shlishi. It's something that, forget about it. Look inside. Now, I could tell you what it says to inspire you, but the true is inside, because how the Rebbe formulates the choice of word, what word he puts before the other one. He is decoding his essence in it. So you cannot read it from me telling you the story, because it's only how I perceive it. We want to get to the real thing, right? So please study inside, right? So, but Be'emet, like, how does it happen? Well, what do we know about Koach HaMaskil? When we're going to go back to the formulation of the Koach HaMaskil, we will understand how this will make sense. What is Koach HaMaskil? Let's start with translation. What's word koach means? Come on, let's wake up. What's koach? Koach is a power. Hamaskil, power to conceptualize. Right? What's koach hamaskil? It's this. Now, where koach hamaskil is, remember? It's above the brain. It's a krumius hamakifim legimel moichin. This is the definition that's given by Reb Hillel, and we learned it, right? It's the membranes that surround the three brain, and they are dwelling in this wetness, belachluchis, right? The wetness between the actual krumius and the skull, whatever that is, some kind of liquid there. Now, and he mentioned there's a koach haruchni. You remember that? It's a spiritual power of our soul. So, my koach hamaskil and the Rebbe's koach hamaskil and your koach hamaskil and all the tzaddikim's koach hamaskil, it's the same thing. What is it? It's a power to conceptualize. It's not separate. My chokhmah is different, yes. My bina is very separate, because that's my reshus, my domain, right? But my koach hamaskil, it's the power to conceptualize. Anything in the world that ever was conceptualized came from the same power.
Is that part of the Chelek Elokah?
No, not yet. It's way beyond, because it's still under the skull. Okay. It's this touch. You want to call it quantum field? Probably something very close to it, right? Meaning anything, anybody has access to this field. It's not my only. It's not yours only. It's not the Rebbe's only. It's inclusive of every neshama out there, Jewish neshama out there in the world. I don't know about Goyim. Don't ask me about that. So I know about this. So now when he says over here, let's go back. Lahagia ad omek haskala zois kanal klula b'koach hamaskil. Kmoshi klula b'koach hamaskil. Exactly. We are able, through our Yigia, to actually get to the koach hamaskil the way it is laying in the koach hamaskil of the Rebbe. Because his koach hamaskil is my koach hamaskil. It's your koach hamaskil. It's not just his koach hamaskil. Koach hamaskil is the unifying point of all the Yidden. It's this field where everybody meets. Okay? Let's go further.
But Nina,
Yeah.
can I just ask a question? Surely what I'm doing is I'm going back into my koach hamaskil. It's not literally, that the Rebbe is taking me into my koach hamaskil, but you're saying that everybody's koach hamaskil is the same. But
that was generated by his koach hamaskil. So how does it will help me to come to my koach hamaskil? So what I'm trying to say that piece of Chassidus, whatever the Rebbe is teaching you, it's laying in the koach hamaskil. It's true. But koach hamaskil, it's not just mine, yours, or they look different. They look exactly the same. Once you're able to reach, because that piece of maimer, that revelation, so quote, right, that came from that field, which is called koach hamaskil, right? It's universal. if you're reaching to the Rebbe's Koach HaMaskil, meaning to your Koach HaMaskil, that's exactly where that mimer is sitting. That idea, you understand, that essence of that idea. Because you see, mimer, the Rebbe is trying to deliver something to us, right? So that, truly, you could have come up with that mimer on your own, basically. Yeah, it is. It's a fact. That's why he says. So how does it help you? Look at this. Kalula b'koach hamaskil, the way it's being included in koach hamaskil, ad sheyochol lahaskil mimena haskolis chadoshes. To the point, because you see, once you reach that koach hamaskil, let me just translate it. Okay, ad sheyochol, until he's able to lahaskil, to conceptualize from it, haskolis chadoshes, a new haskolis. 1 second. What's going on here? Because you all of a sudden are able to transcend your own limitations. That's where the Rebbe is taking you. You're able to transcend your own limitations of your own seichel. That's the only limitations we truly have. Okay? And tap into something beyond your seichel, because actually, physically, it's literally beyond you, right? And you're able to tap into koach hamaskil. Okay, now that koach hamaskil, once you know and to tap into once, you know the address, you know the process, right? Now you are able to interact with the world around you and with your own self in a way how the Rebbe does, that you're able to give birth to new haskalis. Whatever we just read above this paragraph, above this line, in the beginning of the paragraph. So, and isn't that beautiful? Through one tapping into, once, you just need to work with one mimer, with one piece of Chassidus, and get yourself up to that, to the power of your koach hamaskil, and that experience will allow you to tap into it again and again through other things. So that's how we are learning halamed davar mitoch davar, right? You're able to learn one thing from another. Okay, velahasig hasagis chadashes, and we're able to grasp new grasp. Basically, what he's talking about, that we are able to bring down more chokhmas and more binas. You remember the lashon, lahaskil haskoles chadashes. That's the lashon of the chokhmah. Lahasik hasoges chadashes, and to grasp new binas, new explanations. Ve'al kain lomar, right? And through this, we have to say, okay, she'etzlo haseder, that for him, the seder, meaning the Talmud, his order, hu milamata lamala, it's from below to above, right? Because we are looking down up. K'moshe yizbayers, how I will explain it, how it will be explained. V'zeu hefresh echad b'neim. And this is one difference between them. So now let's go back. By a Rav, it's up, down. And by a Talmud, it's down, up. Okay? That's difference number one. And then, v'ad yesh hefresh sheni b'nehem. And there's also a second difference between them. Sheharav maskil mitzad atzmai, that the Rav, the one that conceptualizes from within him, right? Nimshach hakol al yidei amakas hadas. His process is really happening through Daas, through connecting to that thing. Look at this. I have a vision of this house. I have a desire of this house. I'm connecting to my Ratzon, which is called Chush. Remember, the connection to the Ratzon is Chush. Beautiful. I'm connecting to my Koach HaMaskil, which is Das Iyun. From my Koach HaMaskil, I'm connecting to my Chochma. I'm connecting to my Bina. I'm connecting. Right? It's all working with Amakas Hadas, the depth of my Das. Now, what do you do, as we discussed in our informal class, what do you do if you don't have Das? Which most of us don't. What are we going to do now? Now, we lost cases? No, we're not. There's another power. Aval betalmid, but the Talmud, the students, Hamaskil Chadoshes Mimena, the one that's able to grasp, right, a new insight from it, Sheshama Miraba, that he heard from his Rav, Tzarich le'orer etzlo koach chadash. He needs to awaken in himself a new power, Shu Koach Iyun, which is the power of Iyun. Now, the literal translation of it is analysis. But soon we will see that we're not only talking about this cold intellectual Bina analysis, the way we know what analysis is. That's why I'm not going to use the word analysis anymore, just giving you the literal translation. Because Iyun is a deeper power. Iyun is a power of, I would call it inspecting. For some reason, I just feel a little bit more connected with that word than analysis. Because you see, interestingly, we also see this word come up in halacha. When a woman goes to mikvah, right, after doing the full chafifa that she needs to do, that's the halacha uses, tzarich le'ayen. She needs to inspect, right? That's actually a halachic requirement, because if a woman did all the chafifa, blah, 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 and then she immersed herself, and if she did not do iyun, her immersion is invalid, halachically. And that's, the Rav will ask you, did you look through your body? There is a thing about the inspecting, literally, after doing all the chafifa, of actually inspecting. On the contrary, if a person didn't do chafifa, but did do inspection, did not find anything, the immersion is valid. You understand? So that's the importance of it. So now over there, the use of iyun is more of inspecting. So therefore, it's a little bit closer translation to what the meaning of iyun means from the learning that we are doing. So I would want to stick with that. It's more inspecting and looking close at things. Right? It's not just an intellectual analysis, but it's looking close at things that we are learning. So, and what this koach is, next Sunday, we're going to talk about it. Okay, so it's leaving us with this, leaving us salivating, basically. What is this koach of Iyun? Okay, so we have some questions here.
Mila,
yes.
before we go to the questions, can I just do a summary so that everybody's on the same page?
Sure.
Okay. You can just stop sharing, then I'll share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, just so that we're following literally what was going on, what Mila was describing. So the description thus far was from above to below. The way that we were discussing from Koach HaMaskil all the way down to Bina, it's from above to below. And this is from the perspective of the Chacham, a wise person who conceptualizes from his Koach HaMaskil and brings it down in an orderly way. And what is the orderly way? We go from above Seichel, and here I'm doing it very bekitzur in a short way, but just to show, you go from above Seichel to the Rochav of Chochmah, which is the flow of the Seichel, via the Oimek of Chochmah. Try to follow, so it's not just words, but think about it conceptually. So you have above Seichel going into Rochav of Chochmah via Oimek of Chochmah. Then from Rochav of Chochmah, you go to the Orech of Chochmah, and then to the Rochav of Bina, which is Etzem of Bina, via the Oimek of Bina. Now we're in the Rochav of Bina, and we go to the Orech of Bina, which takes it closer to the vessel of the brain or the comprehension of a child. So that's basically the flow that we've been learning over the last 8 or 9 weeks. From above Seichel, which is from the Koach HaMaskil, all the way down to the Orech of Bina. That's the way that it's working. And he's just doing a basic summary. And now how does all this happen? All this happens due to Daas that awakens the Koach HaMaskil to conceptualize and to grasp a concept. Okay. So that, he said, he explained, everything we've learned up till now is from the perspective of the Rav or the Tzaddik, somebody who is conceptualizing from their Koach HaMaskil and they bring it down. But now, from the perspective of a student who hears a teaching from his Rav, it's a different process. The student is starting from the bottom and working upwards. Okay, so here is the literal summary. But for a student who hears a teaching from his Rav, he first only hears the external aspect of the concept, the letters of the explanation of Bina, the Rochav of Bina, or even, so we see that the student is starting in Bina, is not starting in Koach HaMaskil. It's like he takes the explanation of the rabbi and he's going to climb up like a ladder. It's almost like the tzaddik or the Rav, they provide you a ladder that you can climb up, but you start off in Bina. So now when the student, he wants to understand more clearly, he needs to toil greatly to come to the oimek of the seichel as it is included in the Koach HaMaskil. Then he is able to access new insights and new understandings. And this process is from below to above, meaning starting off in Bina and working his way all the way up through Chochmah and to the Koach HaMaskil. So there are two differences between the Rav and the student. First of all, the student's process is from below to above, and the Rav's process is from above to below. The second difference is that the Rav draws down a teaching by the depth of his knowledge or his bond, his amakas Daas, which we will learn about more later. And for the student to conceive new insights from what he heard from his Rav, he needs to awaken a new power in himself, which is the power of Iyun. And we're going to see, obviously, that it's somehow connected to Bina. So that's basically pretty much a summary of everything that we've learned so far. Like I said at the beginning of the class, he's zooming out and showing us the big picture before we once go back into the details. Okay, Mila, over to you again.
Yeah, sure. So I think by now we're gonna go to work. We're gonna go to our breakout rooms. Please let me know if you have access to our WhatsApp group and you already downloaded the worksheet. And so please do that. And then we're gonna work for like about 15 minutes in a group just to fill this out. And we're gonna put 2 or 3 in a group maximum, so each has the ability to really, fill out, because there are quite few worksheets there. What these worksheets will allow you to do is to really summarize everything what we've learned from up until now, because we're going to be working with these details. So it's very important that you really know and familiarize yourself with the concept. It's very, very important, because from now on, what we're going to be understanding about the process of Iyun, that's where the real thing is, right? We want to know how to do Iyun, what Iyun is, where the Iyun is going to bring us. How is that Iyun is going to actually help us to get to Daas, to know God. These are very fun processes, but we're going to appreciate it more when we have clarity of everything what we learned up until now. So it is a midpoint, this turning point in the mimer, where we really need to summarize in our head everything what we've learned up until now with definitions and so on and so forth. And these worksheets are meant to do. So I see a few questions here. Let me just briefly go through them. It is his own effort and struggle understands with all its depth. Right, but eventually once you're in Koach HaMaskil, there's no struggle anymore. Struggle is when you are breaking through. In Koach HaMaskil, you create. You don't need to break through anymore. Does the answer to your questions have to do with bittul? Not necessarily. Yeah, it's a unity. It has to do with unity between all Bnei Israel, even with the Rebbe, right? Recently in Hayom Yom, I saw a beautiful thing that with a Talmud, with the old model, the Misnagdisha model of a Chacham and his students. There was this separation that the Chacham was alone and his students were alone. By Chassidus, Chassidus brought out the unity among all Bnei Israel more than any other teaching in the world. Why? Because it showed how we are all unified, even with the Rebbe. And this is what Amalek tried to do. Amalek, what's his name? Haman, right? Yimach Shmo. What was his thing? He was from Amalek. Why he needed to put Mordechai 50 amma high? Like, come on, 10, 20 amma in those days were fine, right? They didn't have skyscrapers in those days. Why he needed to have 50 amma high? Because his point, the point of Amalek is, and this is what the battle that we are dealing with, is to remove the Rebbe. It's not to question that the Rebbe's holiness. It's to remove the Rebbe 50 amma high, to say, you know what, you have nothing to do with this guy. He's so holy and removed. You can connect to him. He's in Shar Nun of Bina. Okay, so now this is a brilliant teaching from the Mittel Rebbe. It's like, no, he's not removed. He is you. You are him. It's we share very essential components of the makeup of our soul. And this is what's brilliant about it. Okay. Yes. So if I understand correctly, once I tap into the power, then I do not need any teacher anymore. It's true, because this is what's going to be in the Geula. It says we're not going to be teaching from it. We're not going to be learning from each other. We're going to be self-generating everything what we need. This is the beauty of it. It says it's brought down in Chazal that we're not going to be needing teaching anymore. I think it's one of the Nevi'im said to us that there'll be no teachers. That's it. So we're going to resign with Maria. And okay. Beautiful. So let's go into, I always forget how to do this, breakout rooms. Okay.
Just to say that the worksheet covers a lot, you can choose which worksheet you're going to work with, and you're not going to be able to go through all of it in 10, 15 minutes. So choose what you want to focus on.
Right. And I would maybe suggest, just open the worksheet and work together as a group, and somebody fills out, and then you all fill out between. Yeah, that would be.
So there's one worksheet, and it's on the WhatsApp group. We posted it on the WhatsApp group and we sent it out in the email. So at least, that's where you can access it, download it. And, it starts with Omek, then goes to Chochmah and Bina and Daas we looked at last week, but it's all on one sheet. So that's where you can go and access it, and then just work out in your groups how you want to go through it. But as Mila says, even we're not just talking about the breakout groups, but in general, you need to be familiar with these concepts now going forward, so that when somebody says, what is Koach HaMaskil, you're not thinking, oh, I don't know what is Koach HaMaskil. Should have some kind of grasp on all of these concepts. Maybe not in all of the details, but in general, in order to really go forward. All right. Enjoy.
Okay. They're open, so please. Okay. We lost 5 students during the breakout rooms. I see somebody really doesn't like, it. But
I was going to say that was amazing.
Loved it, actually.
I must thank
really
my
enjoyed it.
chavrusa. There's my chavrusa. Thank you.
We had a very good time.
We did too.
okay, great. Good to hear.
I was with Miriam from South Africa, but I think she left.
No,
Did
she's
she?
still here. She's still
Ah.
here. She's just off camera. Okay. So can you share with us?
Not me, my chavrusa can.
Or Sarah, do you want to start, Sarah Ginsburg?
Yeah. Okay, gladly. So we started from the very beginning. Yeah. So what is the definition of omic? I found it very useful to have both texts open, the Hebrew and the English. So I just copied it. So in the Hebrew, it's Eino mahut klal. It's התחברות ממהות למהות. And actually in the English, it's an intangible bonding, connecting one essence with another essence, connecting the connection of two, you translated it, of two matters. To continue?
Right, well,
Yeah.
which question did you answer, Sarah?
The first one, what is the definition of omic?
Oh, okay.
To continue? Neria?
I don't know. Mila, do we want to go through the whole worksheet with people or just get
I
a
think it
general
would be good.
feedback?
Yeah, I think it would be good if we could briefly go through the worksheet, so it's kind of like provides the clarity of what to do for next time. The
Okay.
worksheet episode.
Okay, so you can continue.
Okay, so the
let's
three
make it-
analogies of omic. So in space, we said a corner, two walls meet. Time we said ben hashmashot, and between two people it was the Rav and the Talmid. And we noticed something very interesting while we're reading it, and tell me if we are on track, that when the Rav has to do the Bechinat Ayin, it's Hanachat Or Atzmuto. He has a lot of light, he puts it aside in order that something should be funneled down to the student according to his kelim. And when we spoke about the student, it's completely a different story. It's he has to do a bitul, he has to do a shimamon because his mind is really coarse. And how could he bechlal start getting anything from the teacher? He really has to just, I don't know what to do with that. How did he put it aside? Nullify and suppress. It's
not suppressed. It's definitely not suppressed, Sarah. It's to allow something new to emerge. Because a lot of times we are busy how we understand it, what we can and what we cannot do. We put limitations on things. Understand? So, like the Alter Rebbe said, right? It's a person needs to envision himself like, how is he? It's recently in Tanya. How is he able to come to a certain degrees of love towards Hashem? It's envisioned that he is sitting all in shmut, and the king comes over, picks him up, and brings him into his inner chamber. But you know what? If you think about it, is he really going to do it? There's so many doubts that we have. Is it really going to happen? Who am I? Why would he do it? There's so many other Yidden out there. Like, why is all of a sudden going to pick up Mila Schneider? Yeah, this is our limitations. So can we just, if this is what the Rebbe said, can we just put everything aside and take it as a true reality versus what we think a reality is? And this is where our bittul comes in. You see, we have a sense of bittul where we finally got this, this crumbs of certain understanding, and now we have to give it up. We'll look at it as a negative thing, but on the contrary, it's much more. It's like, you're working 9 to 5 job and you're earning $2,000 a month. I could teach you how you could work 2 hours a job and earn $1 million, right? And you're like, is it really going to happen? Well, if we're talking about from all the scam on the internet, right? We should not believe. But if the Rebbe comes and tells us, I can show you how you could put 2 hours of effort, right? And get so much more. And we doubt that reality. We're like, no, but I have to work from 9 to 5. And you understand? That's where the bittul is. Bittul is, okay, let me just put aside everything what I've learned about life. And let me get from somebody, a reliable source. The Rebbe is a reliable source, right? So from a reliable source, that this is the path. That's where the bittul is from up on.
The only
So,
thing,
Mila,
that's really,
let me-
sorry.
Sarah, I just want to clarify something.
Yeah.
You said she was talking about bitul and shimamon. So when I did the Hebrew translation, you're taking it from the document that I put out. So it's my mistake. It's actually not my mistake. I don't say it's exactly my mistake because bitul, are translated as nullification. There are no words for it. In Shimamon, I didn't know what to say. I looked it up in modern Hebrew, and it says like desolate, like a desert.
Yeah,
And so
emptiness.
I went to the English translation, that we have, and he said suppress. So that's why she's coming and saying suppress. It's not to suppress, but there's no real translation. These things,
I
that's
would
why.
call it emptiness, because I'll tell you what, that would be the more accurate translation, because later on he gives a mashal. It's like this halal rik. It's like this depth, empty depth that olech amok amok. Remember that? It's in the word. It goes very deep, deep down, and meaning it's like you open up yourself. So
No,
when I say suppress, for me in my mind, it's something that I have and I need to put it aside. I think we need to tell them that, the Markel guys, whoever translated it, it's no. Shimamon is emptiness. It's
so
like a desert. There's nothing there. What?
Usually midbar is called midbar shemama. That's a word that's habitually used. And what is a midbar? It's a vast, empty, and nothing there. So it would make sense according to what you're saying.
Yeah, emptiness. That's more, because emptiness is like, I don't have my own things here. I want to hear what you have to say.
But
That's
it's
what
not-
bittul.
I just changed it to put aside, because empty, then you could use rake. Why use shimamon?
I know. It's I'll tell you why they use shimamon. Shimamon is like a desert. Nothing grows there. Empty, you could uproot things, but the roots are still there and they're gonna grow. Shimamon, nothing can grow there yet. It's desert, meaning there's like nothing, really nothing. Hebrew is a very funny language. It's a very exact. So for just see, they use 5 verbs, because it depends. You see from down up down, left right. Hebrew is an exceptionally rich language. It's a very exact to what you want to use for.
You have to
So
ask
yeah,
Hebrew wordsmith, like maybe Rieti, that they go into the really, all the biblical and the Gemara terminology.
exactly.
Find
Yeah,
the
yeah.
true meaning of it, but it's very interesting to discuss. Also, there's something we noticed that the idea of emptying yourself as the teacher is not a habitual model. Everybody knows the teacher has to simplify and strip down and just give the student, get into the student's headspace and think what the student is capable of receiving and what will work for the student. But the idea of there was a concept of bittul used also for the teacher. That it's pretty interesting to follow that point.
By the way, it's so interesting, Rebbitzin, you bringing this out, because I was discussing with one big guy in Chassidus about the bittul of the Mashpia, and he said Mashpia doesn't have to do bittul, and I said, well, he does, and he said, no. I said, I'll show you the proof. Show me where you're gonna have your proofs. That was 1 hour debate. When I showed him by the Mittel Rebbe, right, and Reb Hillel, that talk about the concept of the Mashpia having a bittul from his far sichla, right? He was like, he just couldn't take it. He was like, this is like, wow. And the guy learns Chassidus for like 60 years. He's an older guy. Yeah. And we're talking about like he's in his 80s. He couldn't believe it. He never came across that there is a concept of the Mashpia having, because what is it? It's not to overwhelm a Talmud. Because the whole point of the hashpa, that it will be miskabel b'mekabel. Remember that? He uses that expression, that it should be received. The whole point of the mashpia is not just to talk. Well, I need an audience. Okay, we're 100 people. I need to talk. No, it's that the whole hashpa is that the student will receive. So if I'm not taking into account the kalim of the mekabel, and I'm not packaging, and that's why I'm not going to use the word simplifying. I need to package in a way that the essence is transmitted. Because symptom is not kipshute.
But it's not only for that, I think, not only that I will be able to transmit it in a
No, it's agenda is both. I don't need to
also for my
overwhelm.
receiving the wisdom of the whole act of filtering.
Exactly. Yeah. Meaning I'm transmitting the essence of the hashpa, but I'm not overwhelming the mekabel. You understand? I have this two agenda. two at the same time simultaneously. I don't want to overwhelm people, but at the same time, I need to give the whole etzem. So I need to know how to package for that specific Talmud or for that group of Talmidim, so they actually will get. And that's where the bittul is. Not the way I want to just give. And that will completely crash the kalim of the Mekablim. And what's going to happen? Nothing. People just going to say, oh, wow, you're so wise. But that's not helping anybody, right?
So should we move on to Chochmah?
Yeah.
Okay. Would somebody else like to take over?
You know what, if you had Sarah had all the text open, like I just opened my text at the very end when I was summarily dismissed from my breakout room. But Sarah, you had it open the whole time. You have all the terminology in both languages, so it's so useful. If anybody else has it, doesn't behave, then I'm not sure.
Actually, you could get it in the definition of the WhatsApp group. There is a link to the Google Drive. And
Yeah, I opened it. I opened it at the end, yes. I had it on my desktop today. Could open everything up, simultaneously work on all fronts very comfortably, but I didn't access it early enough.
Yeah.
Okay, look, if nobody else wants to take it up, Sarah, you can continue.
We just made an observation, Hannah and myself, and I thought it was so true to life. If you don't mind, I could share it. That it talks over here about, we're talking about the Mashpia and Mekabel, yeah? And it talks on all levels. To myself, I was thinking on the best, the highest level of what a Talmud and Mashpia, a Talmud could be, but also on the lowest one, where you have somebody that is very coarse with a lot of preconceived, ridiculous, coarse notions. And in order to get something from the Mashpia, both of them have to do the work. But the expression regarding the Mekabel is, it's shimamon. It's completely just, just how does he say it over there? What is the word he says about that? Bitul v'shimamon, just nullify it. Just know that it's worth to have a bitul and a shimamon over there. And of course, the Mashpia has to do his part. So that was just, yeah, so the two levels. Sorry?
Almost like an abolishing. It's like, rape would be maybe a mild version of it. Chimamon is a much more intense term. Like literally dash it completely to smithereens, like nothing left.
It's so interesting. Remember the story that we discussed about the Rebbe Rashab was giving a mimer. Usually the style was that the Frierdiker Rebbe would stand right in front of the Rebbe, and he would look at the Frierdiker Rebbe and say the mimer. That's how all the mamarim would go. Now something happened. I think Frierdiker Rebbe was on some kind of shluchus from his father, and he wasn't present. And the Chassidim asked for a mimer, so he asked another Chassid to stand there, and the Rebbe started the mimer, and then the Rebbe stopped. He said, "No, machshava zaris." The Chassidim wanted to eat up that Chassid. That Chassid was one of the top Chassidim at that time. I don't remember his name. And he said he doesn't want to say what machshava zaris, and Chassidim didn't let him live. You understand? They came over and over and knew you have to. They literally would just tear him apart. So he agreed. So he agreed to say. He said that when the Rebbe started saying the mimer, his thought came to his mind that he already heard the mimer. He already said this mimer. Do you understand to what degree the Frierdiker Rebbe held the open space? So the Rebbe couldn't continue. There was no vessel.
Wow.
Like he would pour the mimer, but that thought occupied his mind. There was nowhere to pour.
Wow.
There was no emptiness. There was no shimamon.
Also,
sometimes the Mamorim would be repeating and over. The Rebbeim would repeat the same mimer word for word. And the Reb Hillel actually said it's actually a totally different mimer.
Wow.
Because the energy of the mimer is different. And so that shimamon has to be there, even though it's the same mimer, So it's
But I think that this really emphasizes why we need to know some of these Hebrew terms, because they're just not translatable. I mean, whatever Hebrew terms you already know, you know they're not translatable. You know, when you talk about chesed and gevura, there's no translation for them. There's a feel to it. So that's why I created that document. The translation is not always so clear, but to try and connect to the Hebrew words. Who can say what bitul is? You know, there's no English word for bitul. So to try and just connect to these words, there's no translation for koach hamaskil. It's something that you grow towards understanding the concept, and then the Hebrew word begins to just have resonance. And so I think that's important. For me, for example, I begin to understand this bitul and shimamon as two stages. And I don't know if this is true, but it's just my feeling about it. I feel like the bitul is the readiness to receive, which is already a big thing. Like, okay, I'm here. And then the shimamon is emptying one's mind of what you think you know about what is being spoken about. And Simon Jacobson speaks about it quite often in relation to listening to the Rebbe in order to remember what the Rebbe said, because he was head of the group of people who would listen to the Rebbe on Shabbat and Yom Tov, and then afterwards they would write it down. So he said you just had to open your mind,
Empty your mind.
empty your mind to let everything in. You couldn't be thinking, is this true? Isn't this true? How is this connected to what I know? You just had to be this pure listening. It was a real extreme shema, which actually I think is passed down through families. You see that it's a hush that runs in families, being able to be a choizer. But that's by the side. But generally, you know, just to get a feel of these Hebrew terms and to begin to know them.
I agree with you.
So that's why I created that document. It's just really to highlight certain ideas, because then going forward into Chochmah, the first thing, you know, that we asked in the worksheet is to give that definition of Chochmah, and then later the definition of Bina, and just to learn those in Hebrew and in English, Baal Peh, you know, to be able to say, you know, here I'll read it, because if I say it, I'll forget it. You know, Chochmah is haskalat etzem ha'inyan, bilti bechinas hislabshut be'otiot klal. Now, it doesn't even matter if you really understand what that means, but just to hold that in terms of the Hebrew, then later on it begins to make more sense. And the same with Bina, to know these definitions of really to learn them, Baal Peh.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
And I make, you know, just so that literally if someone wakes you up in the middle of the night and says, you know, what's Chochmah? And you could say it. When we were kids, we learned a lot of stuff, you know, by heart.
Yeah, and then it starts making sense when we come around a similar, you know, expressions or same expressions, like, oh, I know that. I know what that means.
Because, like, for example, that phrase, Haskalat etzem ha'inyan, whenever you see that throughout the Mimer, you know it's Chochmah. That's Chochmah. And, you know, Bina, whenever you see Otiot, it's Bina. Whenever you see Hasaga, it's Bina. Whenever you see Haskalat, it's Chochmah. You know, so that if you look in that document of the Hebrew vocabulary, you'll see that I've tried to highlight those things for you to make it easier to, you know, pull them out. Mila, it's nearly 5 to 7 here in Israel. It means we've nearly been going for 2 hours.
I like to bring out a point before we finished. Shemama means desert, midbar, but the same otiyot as medaber. So it's kind of interesting that the way you describe when a person's thinking, if we can use the otiyot to empty ourselves, I really want this. I really want to empty myself to be a keli for this.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I was just listening to a shiur where the rabbi was talking about how in order to create a new world, this is what Hashem did. You first have to have the tzimtzum. And the tzimtzum is, as it were, empty of letters. That's what it's empty of. And then you bring in, the kav, which is, you start to bring in the letters. But that process of how the world was created is that there first has to be that empty space. And it's actually, what is it empty of? It's empty of the letters, of thought, of speech.
Nice.
Wow, thank you so much for joining, everybody.
Thank you
May
very
this
much.
expand. May this expand the borders of Eretz Israel. Remember, as it definitely expanded our mind.
Thank
So the
you.
more it's going to expand, we're going to conquer Kenya, Knizi, and Kadmoini, B'darkei Shalom, B'darkei Noam.
Amen.
To the point, as the Rebbe said, that they themselves will give us the land.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah, and all the hostages should be definitely immediately released. And
Gaza is permanently part of Israel.
yeah, for sure. The part of Israel, I'm going to put the map again, so it's, keep us a little bit more. It's a beautiful, it's from Yam HaGadol, which is the sea, all the way by the river, right? The great river, Nahar HaGadol, according to the prophecy and what was actually given to Avram Avinu in Parshas Lech Lecha, is the land of 10 nations, not the 7, 10. And it's like really, it's a huge amount of land. It's the Euphrates River finishes, and then all that area till Yam HaGadol from the Nilus, Nahar Mitzrayim. This is all Jewish. Yeah, and even there's a machlekes if all the laws of Shemitah and everything else really goes into that whole part. So yeah, Gaza is definitely part of Eretz Israel, of the 10 nations. Yes, and like I can't wait to see such huge, such huge. So it's gonna be from the river to the sea. It definitely belongs to Eretz Israel. Not from Jordan River, from the Yam HaGadol, from the river to the sea. Yeah, sometimes our enemies tell us what we should be thinking about. So
I just want to thank Nira and Mila for the unbelievable effort you've put into it. It's really been, for me, awesome. Thank you.
this is our pleasure. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. So we're connected to our honor.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.